morning. It is, I think, around 8:30ish. I haven't checked the time, but I am on my hike. I was actually a little nervous, as I tend to be, about going on this hike by myself, because when I was telling people that I was going on a hike by myself, they looked at me like I had just told them the worst possible insult known to mankind. And I completely get it. It was out of concern for my safety, but it did start to make me feel a little extra nervous, because I was already feeling a little apprehensive about going on the hike, mainly because of the heat wave. And then I was doing a little research on things to make sure you have before you go on a hike, and I kind of didn't have things that people considered essential. I did let the fear get to me a little bit, and I was kind of contemplating if going today was going to be a smart decision, or if I should just wait until I had more materials. I was just kind of starting to convince myself out of going, but I also reminded myself that if it was unsafe to go, if I was not supposed to go, then I wouldn't. I was planning on doing this hike Monday morning, but forgot to set my alarm, and I took that as, okay, maybe I'm just not supposed to go today. Maybe there is something that I am being steered away from. I'm sweating, and all of my bug spray and sunscreen is literally dripping off of me. Basically, I'm just gonna trust my intuition. I'm gonna trust that I'm being guided to the situations that are meant for me. And this was meant for me today. I'm super excited. I've been walking for about 15 minutes, so I'm going to continue. I am here. That's all I have to say. I feel like I'm completely covered in dirt, dust, the earth, the sun, my sweat, sunscreen. I have peaked, and I feel really good. I'm really proud of myself. It took me a minute to find a good resting spot, but I have found a decent one because the people that were here earlier left. The amount of reactivity I have to my surroundings, particularly all of the insects that are flying around, I am simultaneously reacting so much to the sounds, but also trying to remind myself that they don't want anything to do with me, which is making me relax and not react. And because everything leads to a larger picture, the level of reactivity that I have is a reflection of the narratives that I create about the situations that are happening. Things are happening around me, not to me. More often than not, that is generally the case. In the context of insects, the narrative I've created is that they're out to get me. They want to sting me. But that's not true. We're all coexisting in the same spaces, and this is just what coexisting looks like. And there doesn't have to be any sort of correlation between that thing and myself unless I make that correlation. Something that I also realized was that a lot of people have their opinions about this particular hike, because in Charlotte there's only really but so many kind of mountainous hikes that are fairly close by. And so everyone has their own opinion about this particular mountain and this particular hike. And I low-key avoided doing this hike because I had internalized everyone else's opinion on this experience without having any of my own experience to back up the claims that this hike wasn't worth it. Before I start making grandiose claims about certain things, so much so that I end up altering the routes that I take and the directions that I go, I should have my own experience with the thing that I'm making a claim about. Throughout this hike, I wanted to say that I felt like I was unraveling, and maybe to a degree that is true, but it feels more true to say that I was returning to a place of joy and excitement and curiosity. I'm gonna get packing up, pull my last snack out, and head down for my descent. Yay! Let's go. I was in the middle of doing my stream of consciousness journaling practice, and everything started flowing, and I didn't think I was gonna write fast enough to be able to get my full thought out. When it comes to money, I am almost always focusing on what I feel like I've lost instead of focusing on what I feel like I've gained from using that money. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to respect my money. It's a shift from an insecure and scarce relationship to something that is more symbiotic, I guess. In the future, when I do make purchases, I would love to continue to move forward with auditing the purchases that I make with the question, do I feel like what I'm gaining by using this money is worth the energy that I put in when I'd earned it? I have not done anything since I went on my hike, and that is because I was basically on my deathbed for the past week. I'm feeling a lot better. I definitely still have a little congestion, but that's normally my last symptom to go. I worked out this morning, and I am now at the dance studio. It used to feel like an impossible task to get myself into the studio to do my own personal practice. Whether it was trying to avoid peak traffic times, a conflict of availability, or some other excuse I happened to conjure up when it was finally time to make my weekly schedule, I remained in this constant cycle of avoidance towards this thing that meant so much to me. How I spent my time was not an accurate reflection of what was actually important to me. And for longer than I'd like to admit, dance didn't have the same weight, the same level of perceived personal obligation, the same kind of stakes that any of my previous jobs had. Even with free access to a studio space for the past 2 years, and all of the free time I could ever ask for, I continued to negotiate with the part of myself that was content with complacency. I was taking all of my resources for granted, but constantly questioning why nothing was changing. I could center my schedule around 7-hour shifts, drive 30 minutes to a job that didn't care to pay me enough a livable wage, but I couldn't commit to myself enough to drive 20 minutes to a free studio space to do something that I actually care about. The math was simply not mathing. And now, as I've admitted this truth to myself, I've been able to clarify this mental pathway to commitment, which means that, with my priorities straightened, I now have less friction and more ease in the act of showing up.
Oh, this one's gonna be the last take, I swear. I'm not doing any more after this. I don't have any more gas left in me.
I spent a little bit of last night and an hour today getting myself with this crochet project to the point where I could make the straps to match this side, which I made months ago, and I put it down because I got to this point of finishing this, and then the video said, now make another one, just put the straps on the other side so it mirrors, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Part of the reason why I decided to put this project down was because I had no clue how to put the strap on the other side, and no amount of people writing comments at that time had cleared up my confusion. So I was just like, I'll put it down and I'll pick it up whenever, because I can do that. Now I'm back and I'm frogging a lot of the work I just did because I saw a comment that explained how to do the other side. I was contemplating whether or not I was going to frog the piece because technically I could have just finished it as it was and then just flipped this side over or this side over and then just had one wrong side, and it wouldn't have looked too far off because I could have just made the wrong side the back side. But my personal integrity and Jabrea both told me to frog it and fix it because I'm not in a rush to make this shirt. So I was just a little frustrated at the fact that all of this work that I just did is kind of for null, but it is what it is. I did enjoy doing it, and if we're focusing on the process rather than the product, then it wasn't a waste of my time. After this, my next fiber art project is going to be to learn how to knit a sweater. And then after I finish that one, I also want to learn how to do filet crochet. I want to make a filet crochet tank top or a filet crochet top of some sort. Yesterday I asked some of my friends what's something that has been making them happy recently, and my own answer to that was that I'm really happy that I am using the things that are in my room, specifically my guitar, and also I was crocheting, and then also I did a very quick drawing in my sketchbook. I'll sometimes catch myself making unnecessary boundaries and rules for usages of my items or how I approach my crafting and my artistic practices. When I was drawing, I literally had to tell myself, I'm giving you the permission to do it terribly. One of the things I've been putting off has been practicing playing a song, which is literally the whole reason why I even started playing guitar. And so I was doing the song practice, and I told myself it is okay for it to not sound right, for my fingers to switch between the chords slowly, for my fingers to bump into other strings and make a weird sound, because at the end of the day, I've honored myself by leaning into the desire to do the things that I want to do. I was accumulating so much proof of this priority shift as the week continued. Including my workouts, I was doing about 4 hours of physical activity on the days that I was dancing. I was constantly meeting myself at my physical edge and feeling so enlivened at my proximity to the intensity of training I experienced in university. And as I am actively working on taking steps to make dance a part of my career, I have reluctantly decided to act on the truth that exists in all of the nagging I've received from multiple parties about the importance of showing up as a dancer in the digital space. So I came to the studio to refine my movement and film a dance that I had learned the day prior. Every time I put on heels, I feel like such an imposter of a dancer, and the gap in my skill and comfortability compared to other styles becomes very apparent. The version of me in these shoes, dancing in this way, feels so unfamiliar, almost as if I'm performing a caricature of someone who is more bold, more confident, and more comfortable with themselves. But with each passing session, in the midst of growing frustration, or a symphony of repeated reminders that I am in fact capable of doing the things that I say I can, I become less and less afraid of facing myself, and more familiar with this evolving reflection. Each step I take towards myself is a step I take away from shame. Getting sick really highlighted how much I ignore my body's signals of exhaustion. And in context, that willful ignorance of these physical cues feels like a shared symptom that is listed on a roster of socially conditioned ailments. It is a symptom of shame, from convincing myself that I should be stronger than this, that I should be able to handle what I'm throwing at myself. It is a symptom of self-distrust in my capacity to return to discipline. And it's a symptom of fear of falling behind. Since recovering from my cold and then relapsing into a fever because I ignored these exhaustion cues, I have been more inclined to listen to the messages that my body has been sending me. With the significant increase in physical activity and the arrival of the first day of my menstrual cycle, I gladly found myself answering my body's call to rest.
All my life I have been running. Feel sweet, stop forward.
Eat healthy, save your money.
Flows. So basically, that's the dynamics we're gonna be working on that one.
Moments like these are grounding and humbling and remind me of the importance of allowing myself to be a beginner. I know that I'm lacking a lot of education on the technical foundations and historical context of house and hip hop. And serendipitously, this session happened to fill in some of those gaps and serve as an inspiration to embark on a more in-depth journey of learning. I am also so grateful that I have such a plethora of people willing to share their wealth of knowledge with me, for the space to share and explore, and for my capacity to be open to learning. I was feeling a little anxious before this private because I was not only low on energy from still being on my menstrual cycle and slightly malnourished, but also because I was placing a light pressure on myself to perform well. In this kind of environment, everything feels amplified. My strengths, my shortcomings, and my desires all feel intensified. To perform something unsettled internally, for an audience of one, for the sake of receiving praise and constructive criticism, is a very vulnerable experience. Each anticipated moment feels like I'm going against every survival signal in my body. But as the time for the private approached, as always, that fear and anxiety is slowly transformed into excitement and an openness towards the kind of experience I was going to have. Here in this studio, I'm reminded that each day that I get to move my body and dance and explore and commune with others is a day where I have lived fully.